Hey all, Ron here from Military Images Magazine with a new episode of Life on the Civil War Research Trail. You students of the Civil War know just how critical the month of June 1863 was in context to the 4 years of bloodshed between the United States and the Confederacy. General Robert E. Lee and his Army of Northern Virginia marched northward into Pennsylvania for a second invasion of the Union with the hope of gathering food and other supplies, threatening the major cities of Harrisburg, Philadelphia, Baltimore, New York, and Washington, and building a case for foreign intervention. Meanwhile, along the Mississippi River, Lieutenant General John C. Pemberton and his stalwart Confederate garrison manned the formidable defenses of Vicksburg, now under siege by Major General Ulysses S. Grant's forces. The determination of Pemberton's men bolstered by the certain knowledge that a surrender would result in, as Abraham Lincoln noted, the father of waters again going unvexed to the sea. Newspapers followed the daily developments in the eastern and western theaters of the war with up to the moment reports by telegraph practically in real time. And yet, while these two dramas played out, a humorous tale about General Grant, no, not about his drinking or his smoking, appeared in a Cincinnati publication before being picked up by dozens of newspapers across the Union and on the opposite side of the Atlantic Ocean. The author of this tale, unnamed, seems to have shared the story to remind adoring fans that though he was a no nonsense tough guy, Grant also had a sense of humor. I want to share the story, which is titled General Grant as a Joker. It appeared in the Detroit Free Press, at least this version did, and is very similar to all the others, on June 24th, 1863. The writer begins: the hero and veteran who was citizen, captain, colonel, brigadier, and major general within the space of 9 months, though a rigid disciplinarian and a perfect Ironsides in the discharge of his official duties, could enjoy a good joke and is always ready to perpetuate one when an opportunity offers. Indeed, among his acquaintance, he is much renowned for his eccentric humor as he is for his skill and bravery as a commander. When Grant was a brigadier in southeast Missouri, he commanded an expedition against the rebels under Jeff Thompson in northeast Arkansas. The distance from the starting point of the expedition to the supposed rendezvous of the rebels was about 110 miles, and the greater portion of the route lay through a howling wilderness. The imaginary suffering that only soldiers endured during the first 2 days of their march was enormous. It was impossible to steal or confiscate uncultivated real estate, and not a hog or a chicken or an ear of corn was anywhere to be seen. On the third day, however, things looked a little more hopeful, for a few small specks of ground in a state of partial cultivation were here and there visible. On that day, Lieutenant Wickfield of an Indiana cavalry regiment commanded the advance guard, consisting of 80 mounted men. About noon, he came up to a small farmhouse, from the outward appearance of which he judged that there might be something fit to eat inside. He halted his company, dismounted, and, with two second lieutenants, entered the dwelling. He knew that Grant's incipient fame had already gone out through all that country, and it occurred to him that by representing himself to be the general, he just might obtain the best the house afforded. So, assuming a very imperative demeanor, he accosted the inmates of the house and told them he must have something for himself and staff to eat. They desired to know who he was, and when he told them that he was General Grant, at the sound of that name, they flew around with alarming alacrity, and served up about all they had in the house, taking great pains all the while to make loud professions of loyalty. The lieutenants ate as much as they could of the not over sumptuous meal, but which was nevertheless good for that country, and demanded what to pay. Nothing. And they went on their way rejoicing. In the meantime, General Grant, who had halted his army a few miles further back for a brief resting spell, came in sight of and was rather favorably impressed with the appearance of this same house. Riding up to the fence in front of the door, he desired to know if they would cook him a meal. No, said the female in a gruff voice. General Grant and his staff have just been here and eaten everything in the house except one pumpkin pie. Hmm, murmured Grant. What is your name? Selfridge, replied the woman. Casting a $50 in at the door, he asked if she would keep the pie till he sent an officer for it, to which she replied that she would. That evening, after the camping ground had been selected, the various regiments were notified that there would be a grand parade at 6:30 for orders. Officers would see that their men all turned out, etc. In 5 minutes, the camp was in a perfect uproar and filled with all sorts of rumors. Some thought that the enemy was upon them, it being so unusual to have parades when on a march. At 6:30, the parade was formed, 10 columns deep and nearly a quarter of a mile in length. After the usual routine of ceremonies, the acting assistant adjutant general read the following order: Headquarters, Army in the Field, Special Order Number redacted. Lieutenant Wickfield of the redacted Indiana Cavalry, having on this day eaten everything in Mrs. Selfridge's house at the crossing of the Ironton and Pocahontas and Black River and Cape Girardeau roads, except one pumpkin pie, Lieutenant Wickfield is hereby ordered to return with an escort of 100 cavalry and eat that pie also. Signed, U.S. Grant, Brigadier General Commanding. So that's the story. Is it real or is it a fabrication? It seems likely the story made the rounds to counter the tensions caused by the precarious military situation in June of 1863 in Mississippi and Pennsylvania, and to add to the growing legend of U.S. Grant. To find out the veracity of the tale, I searched my favorite sources, my favorite databases for a Lieutenant Wickfield of the Indiana Cavalry, as you might have suspected, without success. Continuing my searches, I happened upon the papers of Ulysses S. Grant, edited by Paul Y. Simon. Much to my delight and surprise, I found the exact order that appeared in the story, with a date of August of 1861. Then I paused as I read editor Simon's addendum, which states unequivocally, this order appears frequently in 19th century biographies of USG, including P.C. Headley's The Hero Boy or The Life and Deeds of Lieutenant General Grant, published in New York in 1864. Simon goes on, since no Lieutenant Wickfield can be identified, U.S. Grant cannot be placed at the scene of the incident, and no such order appears in Grant's book records, so the order is probably spurious. So there you have it, the spurious story of General Grant the Joker and the tale of the pumpkin pie. Thanks for listening. We'll see you on the next episode of Life on the Civil War Research Trail.